Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Ahmed Rehab, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Ahmed Rehab.
Good morning, America. Good morning, and welcome to the Lightning Strike. Today, I want to talk about something that should concern every American, no matter your politics, no matter your faith. But before I go in, I just wanted to congratulate everyone who took part in the No Kings rally yesterday. I'm told that it was record-breaking crowds all over the country, and even in other places in the world, a lot of people came together to say, we don't want a king in America. And I'm very, 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 very thankful to those who made it. And for those people who did not make it, it was a beautiful day, folks. What are you waiting for? The only thing that I want to emphasize is all of those people who came out to protest, if they could please come out and vote, that is going to make the difference. But today, I wanted to talk about a group in Congress, folks, calling itself the Sharia Free America Caucus. Can you believe it? Now, let's just stop there for a second. Ask yourself, what does that even mean? And more importantly, why does it exist? The exact list of members is not fully clear yet. It's not formally structured. But I believe there are close to 50 plus members now. But the message that they are sending is loud and clear. They want you to be afraid, folks, afraid of your neighbors, afraid of a religion, afraid of something most people don't even fully understand. Let's bring this back to basics. The United States Constitution, the document that defines this country, says you have the freedom to practice your religion, period. Not just the popular ones, not just the ones that make people comfortable, all of them. And that includes Islam also. Okay. Now here's where this gets real. Most Muslim Americans are not some outside groups. They are part of this country. They serve in our military. They run businesses. They teach kids. They sit in our communities. They are Americans, folks. Like they even produce and host this program called the Lightning Strike. So when you create something called a Sharia Free America Caucus, what are you really saying? You're saying that one group of Americans is a problem that needs to be dealt with. That is not policy. That's targeting. And it is dangerous because once you start down the road, where does it stop? Today it's Muslims. Tomorrow it could be someone else. That's exactly why the founders wrote the First Amendment the way they did. They did not want the government picking and choosing which religions were acceptable. They had seen what happens when that line gets crossed. And let's be honest about something else. Most Americans don't even know what Sharia really means. Yesterday, I ran into a good friend of mine, Pastor Fran Lehman, at the protest, the No Kings rally. And he came and gave me a hug, and I said, "Hey, Pastor, have you heard about this Sharia Free America Caucus?" And his eyes popped up. He's like, "What the heck does that mean?" Most Americans don't know what Sharia really means. For millions of Muslims, it's about personal values, okay? It's not a political way of life. It's how you live your life, how you treat people. It's not about imposing laws on anyone else. The word itself comes from the word shara in Arabic, which means a path, okay, a road. But fear is easy to sell when people don't have the full picture, folks. And that is what that feels like. It's a political strategy built on division because dividing people is easier than solving real problems. It's easier than fixing healthcare, easier than improving schools, easier than creating jobs. Just give people something to fear and you don't have to deliver the results. And while we are arguing with each other, something else is happening. We are being pulled into constant tension on the military front, endless conflicts. rising defense budgets, talk of threats from everywhere that you turn, always a reason to stay on edge. At the same time, on the economic front, working people are being squeezed. I went grocery shopping yesterday after the protest. Folks, costs have gone up tremendously. Sheila, you won't believe it. I saw a watermelon, and not at Whole Foods, a watermelon at the International Market in Naperville for
Mm.
$13, $12.99 for a watermelon, Sheila.
You got to grow it. You got to grow it.
I'm telling you, I took a picture of that just to show my family back home. Come on, guys. So wages are not keeping up, opportunities are shrinking, people feel insecure about their future. And what
Mhm.
happens when people feel insecure? They blame someone else. Like
Yes.
that's when distractions like this become powerful. Because instead of asking hard questions about where the money is going, who is benefiting, and why everyday Americans are falling behind, we are pushed to argue about each other's identity, each other's faith, each other's place in this country. Meanwhile, the people at the top, the political and economic ruling class, keep moving forward, rewriting the rules in ways that benefit them. Regulations get shaped, power gets concentrated, and little by little, the spirit of the Constitution gets chipped away. Not in one dramatic moment, but piece by piece. And most people don't even notice because they're too busy being divided. That's not an accident, folks. That's strategy. Because a divided public is easier to control than a united one. Ever thought of that? America is strongest when we stand up on our principles. And one of those principles is simple. You don't get to decide who belongs based on their religion. That's not what we are supposed to be. The real test of this country is not how we treat the majority, it's how we treat the minorities. It's how we protect the rights of people who may look different, pray differently, or think differently, because those rights protect all of us. So the question tonight is not whether this caucus has the right to exist. They do. The question is whether it reflects the values of this country. And if your platform is built on singling out a religion or keeping people afraid or distracting the public while power quietly shifts upward, then you're not defending America. You're dividing it. And that is a line we should never cross. It's 13 minutes past the hour, folks. We'll take a quick break and come back on the other side of the break with our person of the week. And Dr. Sheila White is waiting to introduce our person of the week, who has already joined us. We'll be right back after this break.
Mhm.
The comments.
Okay, joining us this morning is Doug Hershey of our Person of the Week, and Dr. Sheila White is going to bring him in, and it is him to our audience. If you would like to call in or join the conversation, the number to join is 773-763-9278. I'm also bringing in Thomas Gary into our conversation. Thomas is going to talk to us about the human cost of war. He is a veteran. Dr. White, Doug is all yours.
Good morning, Chicago and the world. I'm really excited today because I have a real person that has boots on the ground, not so much from military, but from a different perspective. His name is Doug Hershey, and he gives us a virtual history of Israel. We know there's a lot of things going on. Some people believe things happening, some people don't believe things happening. But this is a person that literally has been there, lived there, and take a lot of people from around the world to Israel to see through proof. He has books that literally is called his organization is called Ezra Adventures. And he has been documenting what he has seen with his own eyes. He kind of connects the ancient prophecies balanced with today's events and today's headlines through a visual presentation through his travel experiences. Now, for Doug, this did not start as a project, but it's evidence of what was told through prophecies foretold. I just want to welcome our special guest today. He's a person that can give us the true accounts of what's happening in Israel, what it looks like. Welcome, Doug, to the lightning strike this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for the invitation. Looking forward to spending some time with you today.
Good morning, Doug.
Doug, we have people that have been there. There's people that are literally fighting. They say it's a war. going on right now. Some people are really opposed to what's happening because of Israel. I want you to give us a little account of how this got started for you because it's really interesting. You took pictures and kind of balanced it with ancient prophecies foretold and really put it down to the visual accounts so people can see for themselves. So it's like science unfolding in front of us. So tell us a little bit about your personal journey of why you got started with this project.
A lot of my time was just spent in the land taking small tour groups there. And you know what makes Israel really unique is that there's no other ancient people group that has any type of ancient writings or ancient prophecies talking about the destruction of the people and the scattering of the land to then come back as a independent descendants of the people that originally left. And so there's no other people group that have been on a piece of land and then scattered and then have come back and then have been scattered again for thousands of years for, throughout the nations to come back to the exact same piece of real estate. It's never happened in human history before. So there are some really unique things that set Israel apart, regardless of whatever your politics are and views of how things are unfolding now. And so for me, I was really compelled by that aspect. And with my travels in Israel, was finding a lot of these old black and white photos from the 1840s, 1850s, 1860s, and began going back with a pro photographer to recreate some of these photos for the first time ever. And for
Mm.
me, why that's significant is one of these ancient prophecies talks about when the Jewish people are out of the land will be desolate and forgotten and really a mockery of the nations, the Bible says. And when the people return, that the land will physically respond and the waste and forgotten cities will be rebuilt. The fields will be cultivated and sown, and God will multiply His people back on the land. And that's been happening historically and factually for the first time since those prophets spoke those things.
You know, it's interesting. A lot of people love to, especially Christians, love to travel to Israel to see these ancient sites. We're coming up onto Easter, which is a big holiday for a lot of people around the world, and so they like to go see these ancient places that people have traveled in history. Tell us a little bit about your travel that you do with individuals, how you take them over there, and some of the response that people from all walks of life, not just Christians, is how they feel about seeing those ancient historic locations.
Yeah, there's just something again unique about Israel. Whether you're a Bible believer or whether you're curious about history, there are just some really unique things that connect the dots there. So for me, I've been taking small groups on some of biblical tours and some of connecting with different communities in the land, both Jewish and Arab. In some of the West Bank and as well as sort of what we would say maybe Israel proper. And so as we go, we're looking to connect with people, connect with the culture, and really kind of experience what's going on. Now, since October 7th, since the Hamas massacre on October 7th, 2023, I've led 9 different harvest teams that have assisted local farmers on the Gaza border and on the Syrian border, where a lot of the massacres had happened. And so Israel right now is still functioning in less than 50% of the agricultural workforce prior to the war. And so for
Mhm.
me, it's a great way to connect not only locally, but every community, whether Jewish, Arab, Druze, Christian communities, whatever. I mean, everybody enjoys fresh produce. And in those types of situations, because of the war and because of the Hamas attacks, there's been just fruit and vegetables just dying on the ground, dying on the vine. And so, in a very literal sense, in the words of Jesus, the harvest is plentiful and the workers have been few. And so I've been gathering small groups and going to assist and get some of these farms back up online just for the benefit of really the entire region.
Let's talk a little bit about your books, Doug, because you have books that literally will show the proof in the pudding, as they say. So, talk a little bit about the books you have and how people can get a hold of these books, because even if you never go on a tour with you, they can literally see the visual presentations through your books.
Yeah, so the 2 books that I have currently are the 2 that are behind me. One's called Israel Rising and one is called Jerusalem Rising. And both of them are not just then and now photo books, although that's part of the goal, but it's I talk about it as visual evidence. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, there's no other people group that has any type of ancient writings that foretell this entire process. And so in Israel Rising, there's a prophecy from the Bible in Ezekiel 36, as I mentioned, about when the people are out of the land is empty and desolate and forgotten, and when the people return, that things revive. We can visually document that. And so in Israel Rising, I have over 100 black and white photos that were taken between the 1880s and the 1940s that show just exactly that, over 25 locations all over the land. We're not just talking about one particular place that's highlighted. We're talking about the entire region, what was called the British Mandate of Palestine at that time. And then I have the exact same photos from those exact places to show how much the land has revived, according to what the prophets talked about. And so with Jerusalem Rising, very, very similar. Jerusalem, of course, being a famed, not only biblical city, but a historical one. But since the what was called the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt in the early second century, when the Romans finally crushed the final remnants of a Jewish revolt and Jews were thrown out of the land has been conquered and reconquered multiple times. It's never become a homeland for any other people group, and Jerusalem never became a capital city for any other nation. And so I have some of the oldest photos of Jerusalem ever taken from 1844 and 1850s and 1860s. And with my team, we went back and recreated some of those photos for the first time ever. And so both books are full-size coffee table books, full color books. You can find them on Amazon. You can find digital copies of it on my website, EzraAdventures.com. But it's not just simply, again, then and now photos of a historical city. People will say, well, New York, Chicago, these cities look better now than they did 100 years ago. And the
I have
answer,
some of my co-hosts here. I'd like to bring them in, especially we have a gentleman called Read Bible. Literally, that is his name, really. And we have also a veteran here, Muhammad. Also, Mr. Patino. If you all have any questions, because this is such an interesting topic, go ahead, Muhammad.
So, Doug, I have a question. I mean, you talk about the Jews coming back to their promised homeland and also about the changes. I have traveled extensively over that area. Okay, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Saudi Arabia, I've been all over the Middle East. Most of the Middle East that we see now, if you compare it to the Middle East 100 years back or even 50 years back, was desolate and barren. I mean, that the place was a desert. Now you look at Dubai and you look at UAE, or you look at even Jeddah or whatever, any city in the Middle East. Well, they're all totally different from what they were 50, 100 years back. Okay. Now, most of the Jews that are coming back, I don't think that Netanyahu is technically a Jew. His last name is what, Malinowski or something. Most of them are coming in from somewhere in Poland and Russia and other places. And that's why they don't want anyone over there to do a DNA test. Are you aware of that?
That's actually not true. There is
That's
DNA
what I
tests
heard.
that are happening within Israel, and part of my research that's coming out in the next book is documenting the journey of Jews that are coming from all over the world. And so
Okay, I understand. There's the big Jewish community in India. Did you know that?
for my next photo book, I actually interviewed some of those that moved from India to
Yep.
Israel. So it's literally coming from all over the world, exactly as the prophet said that they would.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, totally, I agree with that prophecy part of it. But some of these people who claim to be ethnically Jews are not. And that's what I was going to point out. We got a couple of minutes to finish off before we bring in our guest, Thomas Gary. He's patiently waiting in our waiting room. Gary, good morning. Do we call you Thomas or do we call you Gary?
Thomas is fine.
Thomas. Okay. So Reed, with your last name as Reed Bible, will give you the final question for Doug.
Okay, well, welcome, Mr. Hershey. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm just curious as to when we say a Jew, what do we mean by a Jew? What makes a person Jewish? Is it an ethnicity? Is it a religion? Is it a combination of the two or more factors?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the word Jew is documented all the way back to biblical times, originally coming from the land of Judea, which, of course, going back to biblical times today, where it gets a little muddy is that there are those that have documented histories of families, Jewish families that go back to biblical times. And of course, it's a religion as well. And so it's being an ancient people group coming from Judea. It's not only an ethnicity from the region dating back 3,000 years ago, but it's also an aspect of faith. And a lot of that's sort of spelled out in the Bible. And I understand that some of the aspect of the confusion, because there are Jews that are, it almost sounds like an oxymoron. Like there are secular Jews, and then there are some very religious Jews, and all of that is perhaps to the Western mind is a little bit more confusing. But especially then when we get into some even more modern history of how Hitler defined who Jews were, and how which family line it goes through. And so but yeah, it's really a blending of both a historical people and really some of our biblical accounts from both Jewish and Christian sources.
Doug, let's get to see each other, have a cup of coffee, and discuss this. Radio does not give us much time to discuss
I
these
would love
things.
that.
I sit down at least every other month. I have a very nice conversation with Pastor Fran Lehman, is a good friend at Life Spring Church here in town. And we get to talk with each other. We get to know each other. We talk about the commonalities between our faiths. We even discuss the fact that Jesus was not a Christian, Jesus was a Jew. Okay.
Exactly.
So we talk about a lot of these things. And I would love to have you join that conversation once in a while. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. That is with us, Mr. Doug Hershey. And Sheila, thank you for bringing in Doug. And unfortunately, radio does not give us much time, Doug. I would love to carry this conversation forward.
Next time. I'll look forward to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us early on Sunday morning. 773-763-9278 is the number to call in, folks. If you want to join the conversation, you are tuned in to the Lightning Strike, and I am your host, Mohammed Fahim. Joining us now is our person of the week, second time, and that's going to be Doug, is going to be our guest, Thomas Gary. Thomas, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all having a good Sunday morning.
So last Sunday, we had Ken Bentley, a Marine, join our conversation, Thomas, and to talk about the human cost of war. I mean, we keep this rah, rah, rah. We keep hearing this. We got a Secretary of Defense who decided to rename, the entire organization to the Department of War. What the heck are we doing with our country, Thomas? I mean, why are we letting the lunatics run the asylum? Let me put it this way. So, a little bit about your background, about what you did for our country. Where did you see the service? Can you talk about that?
Okay. I'm in the Navy Reserves.
Okay.
I enlisted in 98. And about 2005, I was mobilized to active service. So I left my job at with the state, with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity.
Oh, darn it. I
Uh,
worked with them, quite a bit too.
yes,
The CEO.
and
Yep.
had great um, a great staff. The folks there were so accommodating. Um, but coming on to active duty, I was working with a special warfare task group that was working out of Baghdad. And so I spent most of the next 10 months
Mhm.
in Iraq, working with two different SEAL teams. Um, and then after that, came back home, came back to my job. It was the transition home was very difficult. Physically, everything's fine, but
Mhm.
just small things. At that point, Macy's had purchased Marshall Fields, and
I remember that.
walking through the store, my kids were saying I was going through a little freak out because I kept saying, "What do they do to my Marshall Fields?" Uh, uh, but those are the kinds of things where the adjustment back home it takes a while. It was November when I had to go back to work, and literally my first day at work, I basically called in sick because it was too cold for me to walk to the L
Okay.
because my body had adjusted to 110 degrees for the year, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, it's 30 degrees. So, having grown up here, it literally took my body that year to kind of reacclimate to what we would say is normal,
So
normal life.
when you when you went and to the Middle East,
Mhm.
the first impression when you landed there was what? This is too hot for me, right?
No, well, okay. So we were flying on a charter flight.
Okay.
That's actually how most of the transport happens. It's on civilian procured charter flights. And we're making stops along the way. And when we get to Bahrain, which is where the Navy's Fifth Fleet headquarters is, we get to
Yep.
Bahrain. And when you open up the door, instead of a jetway that you'd walk through, you actually just walk down the stairs to the tarmac. But it wasn't the 95-degree heat in, at 11 o'clock at night that kind of
Whoa.
really scared me. It was seeing the two young airmen at the base of the stairs with their M4s. Seeing that, it just kind of hit me. Oh my God, what did I get myself into? Um, After that, every single thing that should have sort of heightened my fear response actually didn't, because the worst that I felt was at that moment in Bahrain, landing in Baghdad, going out to Anbar province, didn't have the same effect. Mostly because, like I said, the the fear response of not knowing what's in front of you is probably worse when it first hits you. Then after that, everything after that is, well, okay, it can't be that. It's not that bad. And so I know that was just me. My wife and kids at home, they have no idea
Hmm.
what is happening to me. My friends at work, her colleagues at her job, nobody knows. And so for them, that fear response was happening at not the same level, but it was constant. It was over that course of the entire deployment
And not
that
not knowing what's happening with you,
not
not knowing whether
having
you
a
come back
clue, not
alive or not.
right, not even being able to sort of visualize or see. When I talk with friends now that are still deploying, a buddy of mine is going down range, actually starting tomorrow. He had his going away at work yesterday, Friday.
Wow.
I can visualize all of that. I can tell him, okay, this is, even though I've never been to where he's going, I can tell him, okay, these are the kind of things to think about. These are the kind of things you need to
Hmm.
talk with your family about. prepare your wife for, prepare the job for, but it's not exactly the same, but it's similar enough that there's a common language that even though he's deploying 20 years after me, we
Yeah.
have a sort of common language.
Yeah, we also have Dr. Chris Martin should be joining us. He was also in the reserves. He's an eye doctor,
Mm.
and he will be joining us in about I would say about 5 minutes or so. Reed, you got any questions? Sheila or Mike, you got any questions for Thomas?
Well, I have a comment. Maybe it turns into a question. It seems to me that more than the physical adjustments, the more difficult to deal with is the mental adjustment back and
Yeah.
forth, and that the violence or potential violence is the fear factor there, which is understandable. That's perfectly human. And I'm just curious as to how we cope with that. There's fear. Does the fear get under control when you come to expect it? You have some idea what type of violence you'll be meeting. And do you get, or is it because you get desensitized to it? And should we be getting desensitized to violence? Um, Although it might be a factor in being able to survive while you're in the violent situation. And contrast that to when you're no longer in that violent environment and you're back in supposedly normal circumstances, how you do that transition and what kind of help would you need to make that transition?
I think part of that may depend on not just the individual. Admittedly, I was old. I
Okay.
was relatively old when I went to Iraq. I was like 35.
Okay.
The task unit commander, the task unit master chief, which was the chief senior enlisted leader, um, the task group commander, they were all older than me by a couple of years. Everybody else was in their 20s. And so I had a context to look and see what was happening around me. And because part of my job was as an analyst to be able to create the picture that um, that the team can go out and do the things that they needed to do in order to make things better. Um, and being able to describe, um, I think one of the highlights for me was being able to describe what was happening in the province in a way that it literally changed our entire orientation. That we went from we're gonna knock down doors and we're gonna hunt down bad guys, blah blah blah, to we're going to protect the election sites to make sure
Hmm.
that the referendum and that the election goes off well, because we need to ensure that there's legitimacy to the government, because that will help us make sure that we don't come back.
Yeah.
Right? And it takes a certain orientation. And it just so happened that my commander was from Northwest Indiana. So I literally described to him, I said, "Hey, sir, you remember those Punch 10 back in the 80s when the party, the Democratic Party, was trying to get people to all vote their way, and they had this Punch 10. Yeah, I remember that." I said, "Well, the same thing's happening now, except, they're kind of up in the stakes, but it's the same thing happening." And that led to the conversations with the commander, which led to reorienting our mission set. And I think that having folks from the reserves, from the National Guard, who are school teachers, who are paramedics, who are in the medical professions who are pilots and police officers in their day-to-day lives who only on occasion are being asked to provide that kind of insight on, on active duty. This was something that was intentional by the Pentagon back in the 70s. This was their solution to what they saw the problem of the political leadership in the 60s, the political leadership kind of throwing them under the bus over Vietnam. So they said, okay, great, fine. This is how we're going to do it next time. If they want to start a war, if Congress and the White House wants to, drag the country into the war, the next time they're going to need to go into the communities. And this is how they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to, if they need any kind of sustainment. We're not talking about, sort of the Russians are in Toronto, sort of working their way down 401. We're talking about if they need to sustain a fight past 60 days, they're going to need to go to Congress because we're going to have to draw from the Guard. And we're going to have to draw from the reserves because we're going to overweight special forces. We're going to overweight military police. We're going to overweight heavy lift. Those things that sustain a battle, those things that sustain not a battle, sustain a war, they're going to need to go to the public and they're going to need to defend themselves. And it worked perfectly in 1990. That's textbook. That's exactly how it was supposed to work. But we lost that lesson. We forgot why this was done the way it's done. And so now we're confused. We don't know why we're doing the thing we're doing.
Yep, Thomas, that's one of the things that I wanted to really ask you is we have a constitution that lays down a Sharia, for lack of a better word, okay? Sharia is the way, the path, okay? So when I started off with the Sharia,
I understand what you mean.
Yep, okay. So we have a process in place, and then we have someone like Donald Trump coming in and says, nope, it's my way or the highway. And then he gets his, neck twisted into a war that no one in the country wanted by his buddy, Netanyahu. And now they want to bring back the draft now. Can you imagine it?
Well, selective service as an institution has never gone away.
That never went away. So that was there, but now they're talking about bringing in the draft also, and then increasing the age of people that all for what? What is the end game over here? And that is something. I mean, I didn't want to get into policy on this. I wanted to more focus on the human cost of war. Yeah. One thing which Ken said last time, guys, has stayed with me, and it's going to stay with me forever. He said, war is not what Hollywood shows you with special effects. The smell, the taste, that stays.
That actually,
yep.
When I'm asked about it, that's usually the first thing that I reach for because that's the thing that kind of sticks in my head. The smell of. I always described it as imagine standing over an open sewer grate in the middle of July, downtown Chicago, behind two CTA buses. The smell of diesel exhaust and sewage kind of in this melange, just that's to me with the heat, that to me is the sensation
that doesn't go away, right? I mean, it sticks in your. I mean, just hearing about it last week has stuck with me, guys. I don't know about you, Sheila, or Reed or Mike. That has stuck with me. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And then Reed, go ahead.
One of the things I found interesting about what Thomas said here is that it sounded like a very important coping mechanism in hostile environments was an emphasis upon the humanity, having a school teacher, having maybe an engineer, whatever, the humane aspects of what life is about. And your focus, Thomas, on the restoration of normal systems, trying to have an electoral process, for example, where you were. That sounds like that was a very big way motivation for your survival, and a means of doing it besides just being given a weapon to physically defend yourself. And I find that that's interesting and probably a stark contrast to what I'm seeing today, where the emphasis is on dehumanization. Am I getting that right with you? Is that what you felt?
Well, I don't know if I can necessarily speak to what's happening in Venezuela or in the Middle East now, but as with so many things, it starts at the top. It starts with leadership. And why should we be surprised when the dehumanization has been a driving factor in his personal life over the last 50 something years publicly?
Mhm.
Why are we surprised?
See, the thing that gets me, guys, is this, okay? Why did we go to war against the only democracy in the Muslim world over there? Iran is a democracy, okay? Bad, good, it is a democracy. All the other ones are autocracies or kingdoms, which is entirely antithetical to the Islamic values that are all about democracy, okay? Mike has raised his hand. Mike, what's on your mind?
Yes, good morning,
Mm.
Thomas. I got a question. You mentioned Vietnam, and I know quite a few veterans that were compelled to speak out against the war
Mhm.
in Vietnam. And I just wondered if you feel compelled to do the same with this war.
Um, because I'm still a active drilling reservist, I am certainly cognizant of um, my position.
Okay.
I am also, though, very much concerned that s- speaking out of context of everything else that's happening kind of, I don't want to say misses the point, but there were a lot of people who thought that, well, if I didn't vote in November, or I'm voting for the person who's telling me he doesn't want to go to war, despite all of the evidence, and now we're surprised.
Yep.
I I mean,
Okay.
what?
Well,
I didn't mean
unfortunately,
I didn't mean to put you on
There
the
was a
spot.
I
sign
know.
I
yesterday.
mean,
Elect a clown, expect a circus.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to put you on the spot, brother. I mean, I know well, you're between a hot rock and a hard place with your current status. So,
Yep. But here's the thing. I mean, we all have to understand that this guy, our president, okay, Donald J. Trump, has never said anything that he meant in his entire life. The guy has been lying all through everything from his marital vows to his first wife to his second wife to his third wife, and then all the affairs that he has had over the years. And now we go to war for what? The Epstein files. He does not want them to come out. Okay.
Well,
Jokes aside, folks.
I
Yep.
can say this though. Every single person who has raised their hand affirmed or swore an oath, they did so to the Constitution, to the defense and the protection of the Constitution, not to Congress, not to a president, to the Constitution.
Yep.
But that's not what happens when you're actually in a hazardous situation. You're not thinking about the Constitution then. You're only thinking about your buddies. You're only thinking about the man and the woman right next to you. That's what you're thinking about at that moment. And so I think it's really important for those that have sworn their oaths to remember those oaths, to remember that the Constitution is not just that document that is sitting up in National Archives. It is also all of the laws and codes that we follow, including the laws of war that we follow, and that we're upholding those. When we uphold those, when we follow our oath by upholding the law, by ensuring that we are doing everything we can to protect civilian life, while at the same time, trying to affect the commander's intent, protecting civilian life, protecting those things that by law we have to protect. We have to protect schools. We have to protect churches. We have religious institutions. We have to protect hospitals. We have to protect those personnel, clergy.
Hey, I just got a message from Dr. Chris Martin that he's having some internet issues, so he might not be joining us.
Oh,
So we can continue the conversation a little bit more with you, Thomas. I think
okay.
that there's a reason for this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, protecting the Constitution. Unfortunately, our elected representatives across the board, not just the president, I don't think that they have read the Constitution. I don't think that they know what the Constitution is. They have heard of the Constitution, but you ask an elected representative to quote something from the Constitution, they draw a blank. Okay. These guys are in there to make a living. That's all they're doing. And they're in there to answer to their masters. And their masters are not we, the people. Their masters are the people who are funding their elections to keep them in office. I don't know why we ended up with this.
Well, part of it is I'm not letting the voters off the hook.
Absolutely.
You can't let the voters off the hook.
Hey, Thomas, that's
The
what I was saying
majority
in the
of people
beginning
don't
today.
vote.
Yeah, this
Now,
is what I was
part of
saying in
it
the
is-
beginning today, that we had the No Kings rally yesterday.
Yeah.
8 or 9 million people showed up. Yeah. Why don't you show up to vote? Is my question to them. Okay. We had 15% voter turnout in my town, okay, in my county over here. City of Chicago, about 20-25% in Cook County. I mean, we are letting the tail wag the dog, and then we complain, and then we come out in rallies with big signs in our hands.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason I mention that is that the incentives and part of that is probably just my background, my educational background. I'm always looking at incentives. What are the incentives?
Oh, I'm so sorry. We have
And-
Ahmed Rehab to join us. Let me see if go ahead, continue it.
And what are the incentives that are either built into the system or that feed action, right? And many elected officials, the reason they're acting the way they are in terms of following the money is that they've been incentivized to do that because there isn't enough voter feedback. There isn't enough public feedback. So the only feedback that they're getting of any substance is that of folks with money.
Oh,
Now,
hang on 1 second. Let me uh, go back to the station over here. Hey, we have a caller on the line. Could you please connect our caller, Dylan?
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me, Mohammed?
Yep, we can hear you. Good morning.
Yeah, this is Ahmed. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ahmed. Thomas will put you on hold for a minute. We have to
okay.
talk with Ahmed Rehab. Ahmed, it's 8:56. We will continue the conversation when we take the station break with you. And I'm so sorry that I did not see you pop up on my screen over here. So Ahmed Rehab is
No
the
problem.
executive director of CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations. Good morning, Ahmed.
Good morning to you.
So I started off with talking about this Republican caucus that is formed, Sharia Free America. I mean, these guys have got nothing better to do except come up with these kind of things to divide us. Can you talk us through what that is, Ahmed?
So supposedly, it is a caucus in the federal Congress that is going to defend Americans against the Muslim clandestine Sharia takeover, whatever that means. So apparently, you and I and all the other 4 million or 5 million or 6 million Muslims that are in America, who are 1.5% of the population, unbeknownst to you and me, are somehow plotting to subjugate the other 335 million to our stringent religious laws that we ourselves are not really involved in. They're not stringent and they're not forced on anybody. Basically, Sharia just means path in Arabic. And in the religious language, it just means the laws of God. And they're applied in our lives on a private basis, personal basis, and community basis. So there are things like how we get married, circumcision for babies, the halal food that we eat. We don't eat pork. We don't eat bloody meat, et cetera, et cetera. Funeral rites, burial, procedures, all these types of things, which other religions have too. In Christianity, it's called canon law. In Judaism, it's called halakha, and so on and so forth. And this group of geniuses are trying to tell us that they want America to be free of our religious practice, which is contrary, of course, to the constitutional freedoms for religion that are enshrined in the founding documents of this country. So not only are they bigoted, they're really, really stupid, and they're anti-American, and it's an embarrassment.
Well, I totally agree with you. And that's what I was trying to explain also in the morning, that Sharia means a path, a road, a way. It comes from the word Shara, like in Arabic, the word for road is Shara, right? Shara this and Shara that, road this and
Right.
road that.
Right.
And
Right. Correct.
what they're trying to do, Ahmed, is they're trying to dehumanize a certain portion of the population so that they can continue to do what they are doing. We are talking with Thomas Gary, who is a veteran, and we were talking about how our elected representatives don't even know what the Constitution is. So for them to expect to know what the word Sharia really means, I think that's a stretch. I mean, these guys need an education.
They don't know anything about their own religion. I mean,
Yep.
they keep saying they follow Jesus, but then they're promoting hatred against everybody who's not exactly like them, except those, of course, whom they fear and whose, let's just say, back end they have to kiss or think that they have to kiss. So, they don't have a moral bone in their body. And it's an embarrassment to the nation. I mean, you have Keith Self, who says that Muslims are the enemy within, Representative Keith Self. You have Representative Andy Ogles, who says Muslims don't belong here. You have Representative Randy Fine, who's a total weirdo, and he's just been saying crazy things about Muslims, including comparing them to dogs, unfavorably, mind you. And he goes on, and this is like Nazi Germany style rhetoric. And yet, during Congress, no censorship, no censoring them, right, by Congress. Rashida
Yep.
Tlaib just said freedom from the river to the sea for Palestinians. The next thing you know, 235 members of Congress acted to censure her.
Well, we got Dr. Sheila White and Read Bible and Mike Patino, my co-hosts, also on the line over here. It's 9 o'clock. We'll be taking a station break, but we'll continue the conversation over here because we are live on Facebook on the station page and on my page, and we will be posting this conversation on our website, TLS Radio, and our YouTube channels and other channels also after the show. So, continuing the conversation, I want to see if Reed or Sheila or Mike have any questions for you, Ahmed, in this regard.
All
Yeah, I
right.
have a question. I have a question for Thomas as well, as far as the families. They
Well,
don't know what to.
Sheila, if we can come back to Thomas,
Sure.
because Ahmed is actually traveling and he's calling in while he's
Okay.
traveling with his family. So if you have any questions for Ahmed, if you could please focus on that for the next couple of minutes, and then we can go back to Thomas.
I have a question for you as well. How does it feel? Because, there are a lot of people that have been marginalized in this country. We talk about, religious discrimination, cultural discrimination. This is something that is still plaguing America. As an African American, I can relate to my history of people being marginalized. This is still happening. What do you think is the solution to this problem? Because America is not getting better. It's not getting great. It's actually reversing. So what do you think is some of the solutions to eradicate this type of thinking?
That's a great question. I mean, it's also a very deep and wide question. I think the best bet that we have is for those of us who know better to unite and empower ourselves. Because oftentimes in history, the good side has been the weaker side, and the bad side has been the one that has all the self-confidence and gusto and the bully pulpit and the ability to mesmerize audiences. You've seen this time and time again in history. So my thing is, I'm done with that. We're going to stay moral. We're going to stay loving. We're going to stay, good. And we're going to build power. And we're going to fight back. And oftentimes the reason why this fails is because the good side is always trying to be all, too gracious, too forgiving, too kind. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in being cruel. Kindness is my way. But where those who hate and those who promote evil in the world, we must be strong to fight against them and defeat them. We defeat them in every possible way. If it's a bully on the school ground, physically, you defeat them. If it's hate mongering in Congress, intellectually and spiritually, you defeat that, et cetera, et cetera. And you can only do that united: Black, white, Muslim, Christian, Latino, Asian, whatever, right? That's the only way, because they think that by dividing us, they can conquer us. And oftentimes they're right if we fall for it. But we cannot afford to do that. And you're right. African Americans, I have to admit, as a Muslim, as a non-African Muslim, because we have a lot of African American Muslims, nobody can hold a candle. Not that they want us to their suffering and to what they've been through in this country. Not Muslims, not Jews, not nobody. The transatlantic slave trade, the Jim Crow laws, all of this stuff. Absolutely. So that's a key community for us to unite with in fighting against bigotry and racism against all people.
So, Ahmed, can you update us on what is happening in the city, the Chicago City Council, with Deborah Silverstein coming in with her view of of dividing us?
Yeah. So basically, they've been pushing, as has happened a lot in recent history, the exceptional nature of bigotry against Jews, and at the expense of everybody else. I had a case at a local high school where a professor, a teacher who's been there, she's actually a PhD, who's been teaching for many years and is award-winning, was pushed out of the school by certain Jewish organizations putting pressure on the school, not because she refused to teach the Holocaust. She absolutely did teach it, but because she dared teach other forms of genocide along with it. And that was enough for them to go, that's wrong. That's a problem. That's anti-Semitic. And so this notion that if you don't accept the exceptional nature of the suffering, the exceptional nature of the victimhood, the exceptional nature of, attention, then you're anti-Semitic. And I think it's really disgusting. And that's what's happening here a little bit. Nobody denies that there's anti-Jewish hate, and nobody in their right mind agrees with it. I'll be the first to say it's something that's horrendous and immoral, and we fight it at CAIR Chicago all the time. And by the way, we have a lot of Jewish, members of our organization, donors, employees, advisory board members, etc. People don't know that, but that's a fact. And so together, we stand up against actual anti-Jewish hate, which we know what that is. It's basically coming after somebody just because they're Jewish. It's the same with anti-Muslim hate, or anti-Black hate, or anti-anybody. You come after them because they're that part of that identity. But what they're trying to do, Deborah Silverstein, the IHRA definition, since International Holocaust Remembrance and others, is to expand the definition to also include the protection of the Zionist ideology, which is a supremacist, violent political ideology, as part of anti-Semitism, as part of fighting anti-Semitism. And I think that report probably does that. So the mayor knows better. He's a student of history, he's a man of morals, and those in his office. And they're like, look, they're probably, and I don't know this because I haven't spoken to them, but probably they're like, wait a second, we know what anti-Jewish hate is and we stand against it, but we're not interested in playing this political game where you expand the definition to protect those who are for genocide or are racist themselves, violent in their supremacy against people around the world, especially in Palestine, and then to say that you can't criticize this. And if you do, you're anti-Semitic.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. So, folks, we need to be on our toes. We need to be on our toes. We need to hold these elected representatives accountable. That's Ahmed Rehab, who joined us today. He is the executive director of CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations. And Ahmed, thank you so much. I know that you are on the road with your family. Thank you for joining us again. And we will continue the conversation with Thomas Gary over here. And we got about 5 minutes before Congresswoman Marie Newman joins us in the conversation with her take on.
Thank you, Mohammed. And I just want to say I'm a fan of the show. I've been a fan of the show for a long time. And so thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Ahmed. And let's come back to your question, Dr. White, for Thomas.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the families. You mentioned, the transition coming back home, the mental that it took on you from Macy's, Marshall Fields. Let's talk a little bit about the families because they're afraid every day that a person is deployed. They don't know the information. They can't communicate. And the toll that it takes on the families when the person comes back, they're you're supposed to be the same person you were when you left, but now you're different. So let's talk about that transition for the families to receive their loved ones back home because they're traumatized and they're not the same person. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You miss birthdays. You miss anniversaries.
Yep.
You miss funerals. And the way it was described to me, and it made sense when I could visualize it. I'm very much a kind of spatial and visual learner, is see yourself and your family unit as a tree. But when deployment happens, you're branching off. You're growing, you're learning new things about yourself, things you can tolerate and not tolerate. But so is the rest of your family back home, right? And so when you come back home, when the deployment's over, you forget you're here and they're here. You feel like you're still on the main trunk. That somehow, no, but your spouse has had to figure out how to do things, manage the household, manage the kids, and shuffling things around and moving money around and had to make decisions without you. And so when you come back, so many people are trying to, wrench people back over to where you were on that
Before your
main
life.
trunk.
Yep.
Yeah.
But neither one of you or the family, you've all branched off. And so at that point, it's just learning how to make that adjustment from that point. Um, and it's difficult.
Mm.
Not if people are married, not every marriage survives
Wow.
it. It's a kind of a dark, the dark humor, you see in these kinds of fields. Um,
Hmm.
they they talk about starter spouses,
Hmm.
but it's the military itself as a community. Leaders like to say, well, we enlist or we commission single people, but we re-enlist families.
Mm.
That, but that's on the active side. The active side has to think through all of that. I was fortunate, we talked about that first deployment to Iraq, but I was fortunate 10 years later, got mobilized again, but it was to European Command and it was to NATO. So I could bring my children with me. They could go to
Mm.
school. I'm They could see that side that they were missing 10 years earlier. They could see that even though obviously it wasn't in a war zone, right? Um, but they could see that part of me and I could see that part of them and I could see them growing and that they're learning in ways that they never could learn here in America because they get to experience life at a completely different level. They
Mm.
see the migrant crisis as it was happening in Europe real time. We're on trains and we're talking about these things. Um, and the thing that struck both of them was they saw border police in Austria and Germany. And we talked about, well, what are they looking for? Okay, they're looking for people that fit a certain profile. And my son immediately picks up. He's like, oh, so wait, we don't fit the profile?
Mm.
It's it, it, it hits him. It hits both of them that, oh, wait, we're, no, guys, no, there's nothing about you. You smell American. You, you have nice haircuts. Come on, guys. There is nothing about you that says I'm fleeing a war zone.
Mm. Wow.
And that's the kind of experience
Mm-hmm.
that they would never get here in
Mm.
Chicago.
Folks,
They would never
that's
get here in America. And being able to see
yep.
themselves in a different light. Um, I mean, not every, and I'll say, my experience is very different than many.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think it's really important that when we're thinking through these issues of conflict and war, we're also thinking about in its totality the families that are affected
Mm-hmm.
and um, what we have to do as a society to pay for it. I mean, it was made so much easier. Thank you all, taxpayers. You all paid for that. You paid for the
Mm.
schools to be built in Belgium and in Germany for them to go to. Those are the costs that I think don't get added into the costs of veterans health care. For those of us who were having to hang around burn pits and all that. And now you're having to pay for that.
Thomas, we
Um,
will continue the conversation with you on another time also. This is so critical, folks, for us to actually hear from people who have been there, done that, to defend our freedoms. And I'd like to bring in Congresswoman Marie Newman into the show today to talk about defending freedoms and the No Kings rally that happened yesterday. And Thomas, feel free to stay on. Good morning, Marie.
Well, let me start by saying thank you, Thomas, for joining us, and thank you for telling your story because it reminds us that we have to work harder, right? We have to do everything in our power because not everybody has health care and not the health care that they need. And as the team on this dais knows, I'm a ridiculous advocate for Medicare for all and a lot of freedoms, but I so enjoy hearing your stories and the others that have come on because it is a really, really good reminder. Like it really distills it so beautifully. So thank you to you and your family. Welcome everybody to Ignore at Your Risk, my segment where we talk about some of the parts of the stories that get a little bit swept under the rug or stories that actually don't get us where we need to go. So this week, wow, big. The I think that the biggest story of all is No Kings, and it does look with early estimates that we are well beyond the 8 million participation goal. It looks like we're closer to 9, and those numbers will keep trickling in. So just outstanding work to anybody that is listening that went to a No Kings rally. God bless you. Thank you. Keep going. But as I said, I had a Substack on this week. You know what? Trump actually isn't afraid of the crowds and the protests and the hoo-ha around that. He could care less. In fact, he's very nonplussed by it. So are many Republicans and MAGA folks. What bugs them and what terrifies them is what happens the day after, folks. It's almost like the No Kings rallies are the fuel, and the car is all ready to go. And now we're cooking with gas, right? So all of the folks that were brought to the march for the first time are now activated. So we keep on multiplying the number of folks that are very passionate about getting our freedoms back and being protected and having a safer and more secure and peaceful environment in the US. So I couldn't be more excited about what I saw. I went to the Western Springs LaGrange march yesterday and was downtown for a little bit. And there, at one point, I stood back and cried a little bit because I thought, wow, everybody, so many patriots in one place, right? So many patriots in one place. So yesterday was a huge success. We'll get final numbers. There's one point I want to bring up at the story that no one really knows about. And it's true Trump administration style. So Reuters is reporting that during the October set of protests for No Kings, the White House was tracking recruitment patterns with kind of intense focus. Reuters says that the Department of Homeland Security used high definition cameras at protests, and then in some instances drones, and then coordinated with social media to see who was there and why. So this just kind of underlines folks like they don't care about the protest. What they care about is people are doing things. So here's the antidote to that. Keep doing things. Yay, team, go. Another story that I think got kind of swept under the rug that's really important for all of our kids, but also for loved ones that are addicted to social media. This was a really big deal, and it was really not talked about very much, is that the a Los Angeles jury found Meta, which is effectively Instagram and Facebook and Threads, and Alphabet, which is actually YouTube, liable for negligence with regard to designing addictive segments of their actual platforms that are incredibly awful for mental health, particularly for young users. So the damages were to the plaintiff were about 6 million, and this ruling is really monumental in that what it says is that hey, all you social media platforms, you better start paying attention to these design mechanisms that you make in your, not in just the algorithm, but actually in the features and the actual platform where you're creating addiction. It really sends a big signal. So this was a big deal this week, and just a couple of features of the trial. So it originated with one family that was suing, and we can't say her name. Her name has been protected, but she got 6 million in damages, 3 million in punitive, and 3 million in compensatory damages. And that's a good settlement, and really sends a really loud decision that we are not going to put up with this anymore. So separate from that, there's another interesting judgment that completely got swept under the rug. In New Mexico, a jury found Meta violated state consumer protection laws regarding child safety and ordered them to pay 375 million. So what did Meta and YouTube respond with? Well, they don't agree with the verdict and they're going to appeal both decisions. Now, they're well within their rights to do that, so fine. But what's interesting and significant here is this is acting as a test case, and others will come over. So what legals are saying, those general counsels at Meta and YouTube should be considering, hey, let's put aside some money and stop all these. So do their own reverse class action and provide a settlement to everybody that in fact has suffered from mental health issues attached to it, because they're going to just have an onslaught of lawsuits now. So it'll be very interesting to see how this goes. So keep an eye on that. But this is good news. A, protect your kids, but B, you know what, you do have recourse if something awful's happened to your family. So I get this question a lot, and it always kind of chaps me a little bit. So a lot of people say, throw up their arms and say, oh my gosh, we can't do anything about Citizens United because we have this conservative court.
Yep.
And there are parts of that that are true. But guess what? It's not true. So we have lots of levers and tools.
So, Maria, I want to jump in a little bit over
Sure.
here. For those of our listeners who don't know what the reference is to Citizens United, could you please explain it a little bit?
Yeah, no, you beat me to it, but thank you for the
Okay.
reminder. And sometimes I do skip over these things, assuming that it's common knowledge. But Citizens United basically is a shorthand term for a landmark case in 2010 where Citizens United versus the FEC. So FEC is the Federal Elections Commission. That's the organization that is the watchdog group and the actual cop and police for elections, donations, campaign finance, all of the things. So this changed the face of campaign finance and money in politics in the US in a very, very negative way. Citizens United overturned certain longstanding restrictions. So it used to be that you had to show all of your donors and that you had to be very transparent and all of the political organizations that gave. So what Citizens United did, this case granted corporations, nonprofits, unions, unlimited political spending power. So this is where we get this term dark PACs, because what we mean by dark PAC is that we have no idea who gives to these super PACs and what we call an independent expenditure. So Citizens United effectively equated free speech to money and to political spending, which is wrong. I think we can all agree that corporations are not people. So APAC is a good example of one of the dark spending groups, and their 20 affiliate groups. They just spent 20 million here. Corporations from crypto and AI industries are having a heyday right now. Now, all corporations can have what they call a corporate political PAC, but recently crypto and AI, because they're so flush with cash, have already just in the Illinois primary spent 7-8 million. And all total across just 5 states, they've raised and spent 15 million. We still have 45 primaries to go in this nation, folks. So they're going to keep spending, and we need to keep speaking up. So what can we do to beat back Citizens United until we get a new court that is more balanced with conservative and liberal views? Because that's not going to happen for a little while. What can be done? A lot. So let's go through that. So there's a bill out there that was introduced in 21 and again in 23 that garnered maybe 50 members to agree to it. And it was a omnibus bus omnibus act called Drain the Swamp. So one of the items was to ban super PACs completely. Can't have any more super PACs. So all of those dark PACs that got engaged in Illinois over the last primary, they would be gone. Stock trading ban that would prevent any member of Congress from trading stocks, which is part of the problem, is that they get insider knowledge on these committees and then they go get rich off of it. Congressional term limits. This also engages a 12-year limit for members of the House. Lobbying and gift restrictions, another big deal. I can't tell you how many very creative and innovative ways that corporate PACs give money to through their lobbyists and other means to members of Congress. Supreme Court reform. It would include a binding code of ethics. Look at what we've seen over the last 5 years between Justice Thomas and Gorsuch receiving literally millions of dollars, vacations, homes, free everything. It's like a candy store. And then finally, it would propose that we get rid of all of these sub PACs that are special interest in foreign lobbies like APAC. And then another thing that is really important to understand is that we can expand this court, folks. It's been done. In the 30s, we had a much larger court. There were 12 justices instead of what we have now, which is 9. Yeah. So we can have 13 justices. So there's another act called out there, the Judiciary Act of 21 and 23. Again, about 50 members interested in it. So lots we can do to beat back Citizens United before we get a fair and balanced Supreme Court in place. And by the way, if we do take back the House and Senate, which I think we will, I think that both of these bills will pass. So that a little bit about Citizens United for today. You can read more. I'll be talking about more in the coming weeks on my Substack at Marie Newman's studio. So those are all the things we've been sweeping under the rug.
Well, thank you so much, Marie. Maria is actually traveling. She is on an aeroplane and she is hoping to get down and join us if she gets down in time and finds a quiet place. So we got Reed, we got Sheila, we got Thomas Gary, and we got Mike Patino on the panel today. Guys, you got any comments, any questions, anyone on what Marie has been talking about?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Sure.
Go ahead, please.
That when you mentioned court expansion, historically up until 1869, the number of seats was tied to the number of circuits.
Right.
And we have 13 circuits. We can certainly tie that. The Fifth Circuit, the Ninth Circuit, they're so overworked, they should be split.
I agree with that too.
So now
that
you got
point
15.
is very important. Yeah. Yeah, no, so if we're a representative, because we're a blend of a republic and a democracy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your theory is exactly right, Thomas, is that the court our bodies are, the president has to be representative and voted in, members of Congress and the Senate have to be representative geographic areas. Why can't we have the court that way too? That's really what the founders wanted. So you're exactly right.
There are so many ways of dealing with, I think, some of these structural issues that have given certain players overweight or overbalance. A lot is talked about gerrymandering, but they're only talking about the House.
Yeah.
No one talks about the gerrymandering of the Senate.
Yeah.
How 6 states were created whole cloth in the Benjamin Harrison administration, including splitting Dakota in half,
right,
for the explicit purpose of creating 4 senators out of 2, where we have U.S. citizens who enjoy no rights because they live in communities and they live in areas that are excluded by the court, excluded from full citizenship.
Yep.
District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam.
Yep.
Bring those communities into the perpetual union.
Yeah.
Would add a significant number of senators, as well as representatives. Puerto Rico has a population that would make them have a larger delegation than Mississippi.
Right.
Um, but not talking about it means that it we're not prepared. The public isn't prepared.
Yep.
And
What's interesting, so you bring up a really tricky point. So I'm with you. Like if I were to be the fairy godmother of the Congress, I would say the first thing you should do is vote to make DC a full state. They are. It's 750,000 people. It's big as some other states make it a state, right? Offer the opportunity to, because I am a big fan of letting the people that live in a place make their own decision. So interestingly, Puerto Rico is right down the middle in terms of their people. They like half of them want to be a state and half of them don't. So I do think that we would have to put it up for a vote. The governor of Puerto Rico should put that forth and allow that to happen. And same, and what I read about Guam, and I don't have lots of context there, but what I read about Guam is they're not super excited about being a state. So like that could not work. But you're right. All these people are disenfranchised. What people don't know is that the current delegate that we would call from the Virgin Islands or from DC, they don't have voting rights in Congress.
Right.
They can be on committees, they can vote on committees, and they can do all kinds of things, but they can't vote on legislation. And so it's really unfair to both the citizens as well as the country. I feel like we're better when we have more and different people engaged, right? And so this you raise a really critical point that wow, the under 1 million people in Wyoming have far more rights than all the territories and places like DC and Puerto Rico. So it's I think we have to. It's one of the first things we have to do when we get control back, is my sense.
Yep, and I think Marie, the important thing is to elect the right people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about it in the morning. By the way, folks, if you want to join the conversation, the number to call in is 773-763-9278 or 773-763-WCPT. You're tuned into the Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim, with my co-hosts and team members, Marie Newman, Mike Patino, Dr. Sheila White, Read Bible, and we also have our guest, Thomas Gary, joining us on the broadcast today. Important things being discussed, folks. Baria Muzaffar is traveling and she is unable to join the conversation. If she pops in, we'll definitely bring her into the conversation. Reed, do you have any comments on what we have been discussing?
Well, I think that Marie makes a good point, as well as Thomas does, about just the money that goes into our politics. We need to have laws that get the money out, because quite frankly, the very first step towards having democracy is having candidates who are considered to be representative of the people. And right now, if you can't raise a whole lot of money, you can't even get into a primary, and you're only considered a credible candidate if you can raise a lot of money. So you could have a constituency, say, of 5 people, each of whom have very deep pockets, so you can raise a whole lot of money from them. But you might have another candidate who wants to get in the primary who has 500 followers, but they don't have deep pockets. They might be able to chip in $5 here or there. So there are more people, and their candidate would be more representative, but that candidate can't raise as much money. So we don't even have equalization of citizenship here, because we let the media decide who's a credible candidate based upon how much money they can make. So we have a money primary before we have a primary, and you got to get through the primary before you can get to the general election. So we definitely have to get money out of politics. I'm for basically having publicly funded campaigns or candidacies. And also, I think the radical idea of, and I know this is radical, I'm seeing less and less of a need for a Senate. I think I'd kind of like to get rid of the Senate and just go to an expanded House of Representatives. So
you're not the only one that believes that, Reed, and there are a lot of people in the House that I'll just tell you, my own colleagues are like, what are those people doing? For God's sakes, like get up and do something. So it is kind of funny. But I will say I'm really torn on that issue. I do think that the beauty of the model of being both a democracy and a republic combined is that there's like a layer that deliberates. It's supposed to be a deliberative, and that's why they're painful, right? Is that they deliberate, right? Um, I do think that we need to take a look at, and this is a blend of your mandate and Thomas's, is that I think we have to look at how senators are apportioned and proportioned, right? Is that not only do the states that have just 1 million people deserve the same number of senators as California?
That's
Like,
the question, yeah.
I mean, so maybe it's apportionment and proportionment so that we have a fair number of people represented by a human that is duly elected, right? So there's that, and then bringing in the territories that want to be brought in, definitely making DC a state. That's just been a crime for me. That just sets my hair
Yeah.
on fire.
Yep.
Just having lived there and here is that, like, look, in Illinois, we enjoy some decent democracy, right? In DC, I'm just going to say, it gets screwed every single time.
Oh,
Those
absolutely.
people are literally
Mhm.
abused. It's abusive. Um, so, um, so yeah, it serves. I also have thought, and this is right in your wheelhouse of your mandate, is that maybe it's time to expand the number of members of Congress too. Like the fact that each member of Congress has 750,000 people, that's a bit unwieldy. When I was serving, I tried to get to every single community, every single zip code regularly, right? And and then remember, and this is has to do with your other comment, then I'm expected to fundraise 20 hours a week when I'm in office. And then you only stretch so many
Yeah,
ways,
you
right?
spend a whole year fundraising half of your term,
It
and if you
really
don't raise
is.
funds, you're not considered a credible candidate.
Well,
And I wish a week was only 40 hours. It was 80 hours. So, it
Yeah.
well,
was
as an
Mike
so
has
important.
institution,
got
Yeah,
his hand
yeah.
raised for quite some
Go
time
ahead.
now. Let's see what Mike has to say. Well, just, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to touch on what Marie alluded to and what you said right on the money. We have to start concentrating on better candidates. And then once we get them in, if we do get them in, then like Marie Newman, we have to protect them. We didn't protect her like we should have.
Oh,
I mean, there was, that she was under attack by a lot of people that we had no idea that um, the Illinois Democratic Party was, not, doing what they were doing. So it's so important to get the right people in, number one, and then when they do get in, we have to stay engaged and support them and stay on
Well,
top of their issues.
Mike,
Uh,
we didn't have the lightning strike then, okay?
well, now we have it. And
power.
Marie wouldn't have got crucified by being the lone vote against the Iron Dome if we were watching
Yep.
her.
And,
That's
and we are going to hold people accountable. Okay. That's something that's why we started this program, Thomas, is to hold our elected representatives accountable to us, we, the people, not to the people that are funding them. And surprisingly, or not so surprisingly, when we invite people like Brad Snyder or Sean Caston to come on the show, they don't want to come on the show because they know that they're going to get some lightning and some heat put on them. Okay.
exactly.
Yep. It's coming up to 9:40, folks. And if you want to join the conversation, feel free. You can even text us at that number, 773-763-9278. This is the Lightning Strike. And we come every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT, 8:20 a.m., which is the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And if you are listening to us on the internet, feel free to go to our website, which is TLS Radio for the Lightning Strike Radio.com. And we'll be showcasing a new website in the next couple of weeks. And I had a preview that we did for our team on Friday in our team meeting. And Mike, after the show, if you can just stick on, I will walk you through the preview also. Okay.
Absolutely.
So we got Reed wanted to talk about something, and I want to bring him in and get his rant on, and we can discuss on what Reed has to say also. Good morning, Reed. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning. Well, you know that we still have the issue of TSA on duty and they're not getting paid. and Trump administration has decided to put ICE agents in there to supplement them somehow. And so this is problematic because you're going to have ICE agents that have every potential for making what should be a aviation security check being done by TSA, turning into instead of a TSA checkpoint, it's going to be an immigration checkpoint. And the problem is that we've not done this before, so there's no case law that exists on what are the limits on these ICE agents who will probably be using aviation administrative checks for doing immigration checks. And so I just
let me stop you for a minute over there, Reed, and introduce you properly to our audience.
Oh, okay.
So, folks, what makes Reed Bible the right person to talk about this issue? Right, Reed is a retired special supervisory agent for the Department of Homeland Security. He's also an attorney. Okay, so that is the credentials that Reed has to talk about this subject. Go ahead, Reed.
Okay, well, what makes this all susceptible to an abuse of our Fourth Amendment rights, our rights of privacy, is it does affect citizens, as it turns out, because these agents have shown a propensity for violating the law. They've shown a lawlessness. They ignore the Constitution.
Come on, Reed.
Well, I know it's a shock.
When did they show that, Reed? Come on, these guys are so sweet. They have masks on their faces.
So you might think because you're a United States citizen and you're just getting on a domestic flight, you're going to be okay. You won't have any problems with ICE. Well, I have to tell you that may not be the case, folks. And particularly if you are not a United States citizen, I want you to listen up to this, because even if you are a lawfully admitted permanent resident, so you have a green card, you're supposedly a permanent resident, or whether you're DACA or you have some kind of temporary protective status, parolee, or especially if you are undocumented, or if you are a non-US citizen who's got any kind of a criminal conviction or arrest, that's going to probably be used against you by an ICE agent if you go through a TSA checkpoint that has been kind of secretly changed, converted into what's really an immigration checkpoint. And what I want people to understand is that while if you're a domestic passenger and you have to submit to what is considered an administrative inspection when you go to a TSA checkpoint, the purpose of that is to promote aviation security, and aviation security, period, not immigration law enforcement. And TSA agents are not law enforcement officers. So if they see some indication that there's some other thing going on here, violation of law, they got to call in a law enforcement officer to take that further. But I want to emphasize that when you're traveling as a domestic passenger, you are just going through, you don't have a choice in this, you have to go through what is an administrative security search. And it doesn't have to be based upon reasonable suspicion. However, once that inspection has been done and it's over, any further detention of you is considered to be something that is in violation of the Fourth Amendment, unless it's based upon reasonable suspicion or probable cause to detain you for questioning or seize your property or you. It better be based upon reasonable suspicion for a detention or probable cause if it's an arrest or searching of your luggage. Otherwise, they are not in compliance with the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment still applies to all searches. It's just that when it comes to an administrative search, as opposed to a reasonable suspicion one, you have a lower degree of protection from the Fourth Amendment, because the only restriction is it has to be reasonable. And all inspections have to be reasonable. So if they want to strip search you when they're supposed to be checking you for aviation threats, that better be based upon reasonable suspicion. That is not a routine check. If you go through TSA and the TSA officer is finished with you, they've checked your luggage, they've wanded you down, put you in the X-ray machine, then that inspection is done. If you then are continued to be held by an ICE agent, now we've crossed over into what's probably illegal unless they can articulate a reasonable suspicion to you. And if you think that you're not free to leave, what you need to do, whether you're a citizen or non-citizen, is ask an ICE agent, am I free to go? If they say no, then you are perfectly well within your rights to ask them, well, on what grounds am I being held? If they can't answer that, then they're violating your civil liberties. You should be free to go. And I want people to be aware of that. There's a difference between an administrative search and a search that's based upon reasonable suspicion. And if it's not based upon reasonable suspicion, then it's not lawful. And there's just a few tips or precautions I want people to do. One, don't answer questions for a domestic flight if you don't feel like answering them, because there's no law that requires you to do that. You just submit to your administrative search, and that's it. You don't have to answer a bunch of questions. And if they're asking you beyond that administrative search questions, ask them, am I free to go? And they should say yes. If they say no, then ask them, why am I being held then? And if they can't articulate it, then they know they're clearly in the wrong. And with these poorly trained ICE agents, I don't think they can articulate why they would continue to hold you. And so they're going into the area where they might set themselves up for a lawsuit in federal district court. Some tips for the non-U.S. citizens, in particular, I want to get out there is that bring proof with you of your legal status when you come to the airport. You know, if you got a green card, bring it with you. If you have a pending application, say for asylum or whatever, bring it with you. If you have any certified documents from a court that finished up a lawsuit that you might have been involved with, bring a certified copy if you can of what the judge had ordered. Also, before you get to the TSA checkpoint, sign out of your email accounts on your cell phone. Get totally out of them. Same with your laptops. Shut down your electronic devices so that they can't get into them without a password of some sort. Also, memorize a phone number of a lawyer or a member of your family, because if ICE snatches you and they take you to some detention facility, you may have a problem getting in touch with your relatives or your friends unless you can remember the phone number to call and get access to a public phone. Also, sign privacy waivers to leave with your relatives or your friends, so that if you do get snatched by ICE and you got friends or relatives looking for you, they don't have to run up against that brick wall of an ICE agent saying, oh, I can't tell you where we have them or where they went because of privacy reasons. You can whip out that waiver and say, hey, they gave me permission for this information. Make temporary guardianship arrangements for your children if you're a parent and you're a non-U.S. citizen going to an airport, because if you get snatched again, you want somebody there to back up to take care of your kids for you. Also, minimize any data you've got on your electronic devices. Don't give them a gift of unnecessary information on you. Just don't do it. Also, you can wear a mask in an airport. And I would maybe suggest that, especially for non-U.S. citizens, because TSA and ICE oftentimes work together where when the TSA agent asks you to remove your mask just for purposes of identity, that's a prime opportunity for an ICE agent also to do a facial recognition picture of you. You don't want to give them any more of an opportunity to do that than necessary by wandering around barefaced around the checkpoint or in the terminal. So wear a mask if you feel comfortable for it. And if you want to document what's happening to you when you encounter one of these TSA checkpoints, which are kind of a disguised immigration checkpoint, bring some other data-free device with you, another cell phone that's got none of your data on it, so you can take pictures. But use that one. Don't use your regular cell phone. And also, a final point, when you're getting clearance to go into the TSA checkpoint, don't use your cell phone to show an electronic ticket to board, because that gives them an opportunity to get into your phone. Use a paper document. So those are just some of the tips I would give to people who are not U.S. citizens now who want to get on a domestic flight.
Good.
Reed, thank you so much. I mean, excellent points. I don't think that anyone has spoken about this on radio so far, folks, and that comes from experience. I mean, this has been a master class in how to live in our country. I mean, this is becoming so bizarre now. Someone asked, who was the moron who came up with the idea of having ICE at the airports? And our president said, oh, it was my idea. Okay.
which it
So,
wasn't. But
that pretty much goes with what this guy is doing.
Muhammad, I could go for it being his idea if they had like Customs and Border Patrol agents doing this, not ICE agents, because Customs and Border Patrol agents kind of do similar things to TSA. They just do it in reverse because they just clear passengers who are deplaning from an international flight. They're coming into an international airport. So they want to check to see who's a U.S. citizen, who's not, if there's any kind of customs violations going on with the luggage, that sort of thing. So they kind of do the same thing for arriving flights that TSA does for departing domestic flights. But ICE agents don't have any of that kind of training. So why are they there?
So the real answer is, and the real reason Trump had this idea is that Miller and Trump realized they're not making those creepy, weirdo, and vile quotas.
Yeah.
And this is another stream of area that they hadn't attacked yet. So now they have another geographic channel to attack
Exactly.
nice people.
They got to meet those Steve Miller's quotas of 3,000 per day or whatever. That's ridiculous. Law enforcement should never be based upon quotas.
Yeah, it's all of it. But I'm so glad you shared that because I don't know if everybody that travels understands that. And by the way, folks, is that if you are someone who has documentation or you are undocumented, some of this is very capricious with ICE agents and, their ridiculous quotas. So don't be surprised if we see, of course, in a very scary way for those that are undocumented, more of that. But don't be surprised if you see more documented people being taken in and scared, because that's what they're trying to do. They're just trying to scare you.
And TSA, by the way, TSA does share flight lists with ICE.
Yeah.
Now, those are supposed to be for purposes of targeted arrests, but I'm not buying that. I don't think that they have targeted arrests going on here. It's random. It's if you're brown, you better get down. If you're black, you better get back. We'll take you to Broadview. That's what's going on here, folks. This is, to me, this is institutionalized racism.
Absolutely.
Only way to describe it.
Oh boy. Oh boy. I never thought, Marie, that we will be having these kind of conversations in America.
I know.
Never thought in a million years, okay? And it is so ridiculous. Again, it comes back to where we started off with. I mean, it kind of circles back, is that we have to elect the right people. And in order for the right people, like Joey, for example, he would have been a great congressperson. Bushra would have been a great congressperson. But we have these people sitting over there that are unwilling to move, and then they have millions of dollars in in their election funds, and nobody is really looking at those things. But folks, here's the thing: no matter how many millions those people have, if you pay attention, if you come out and vote, you can get them out. Perfect example is what happened with Raja Krishnamurthy.
Yes.
The guy spent what, $29 million in a primary?
Yep.
I mean, just think about it. $29 million. That's not a small amount, folks.
Well, Demi Palacic in the State House, the 13th district, that was another example where she was a candidate with the least amount of money. But most people forget that money is just a means to an end.
Right.
She did the thing that the money is for, which is she knocked on doors. She got her name out. She had people. She had teams. That's all they did, was knock on doors, get in people's faces, get in front of actual people. And so I understand money is important in the nature of politics, but it's just a means to an end. It's not the end in and of itself.
Hey, Thomas.
And there are lots of candidates that prove that this primary election cycle.
Demi was also a guest on our show. Don't forget that. Okay.
Another veteran. Another veteran.
And I want to balance that a little bit, because Thomas is exactly right, is that there is a way to win with a very low amount of money. It is significantly and exponentially easier when you are running for state or county or local. When you are running for Congress, and I have the data back it up, like unless you have a couple $1 million, you you have about a 1% chance of winning. And that's
Wow.
just numerically accurate. So it is, if you're in the state house, it's a lot easier. If you are running for Congress and you are running against someone very moneyed, sometimes, and I'll give the example, and I'm sorry to bring up my own case, had to run twice because I didn't raise as much money, but I got some name recognition in 2018. We had 3,000 volunteers, and we knocked, I think it was 70,000 doors, and we made 500,000 phone calls, right? 500,000 phone calls. So it does work and it's really important. But when you're running for Congress, you have to have that huge force and that sets some records, right? And a couple $1 million. That's the sad, sad part. So the people that are making kind of the biggest decisions for us, it is still money is just a huge problem. That is not to say that you can't beat it back with hanging in there for a longer period of time, running multiple times, and having lots of people on your side. Building a coalition should be your first move, not raising money. But we do have to address this money thing because there are a lot of really, I saw it myself in all of the races that were open, brilliant candidates that I was so impressed with in every single race got to the single digits because they didn't have money. And they should have been a contender, right? And it's one of the things that I spend a lot of my time doing is beating back money in politics for that
And
reason.
then, Marie, we also have this insidious thing of, organizations running polls, and then our major media, mainstream media, just inviting those candidates
Exactly.
who are ranking high in those polls,
Agreed.
and not all the candidates that are running in a particular in a district for a particular office. That also needs to change.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I called the money primary, by the way, Mohammed.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I mean, some of the candidates, like you were saying, so qualified, and then they are not being invited to these so-called debates on national television or radio. That needs to change. That needs to
Well,
change.
I'll tell you that because I did a Substack column on this a while back that the influence of paid influencers in our
Yeah.
primaries is starting to become good and bad, right? There's good things about those folks that actually know what they're talking about, but then they're also immediately saying, okay, folks, move your attention over here because these are the folks that only can win. So they're picking winners and losers, right? And that's not fair because they do have 1 million followers, right? And they're telling folks, oh, in this race, these two people can win, so only pay attention to them and don't look at this other qualified person that is doing a great job. So there's a bunch of bad influences out there.
I'm glad, folks, that this primary was very telling for us.
Mm,
Did bring out some good people. It also brought out that organizations and PACs like APAC and all of those are really getting their behind whipped all over the country. In
indeed.
the last 29 races so far all over the country, the Democrats have won. And if that trend continues, heck, even in Mar-a-Lago, she flipped the seat over there that Trump's
That was so funny.
hometown. That was the funniest thing that happened.
It was
Okay.
deeply funny.
So if we continue the trend, and again, once these people get elected, no matter if they are, Republicans or Democrats, hold their feet to the fire. Because once you go up there, it's not a question of draining the swamp. It is not a swamp. Someone repurposed it at it is a sewer.
Yeah.
So they get sucked in over there. And all this talk about draining the swamp does not work because you're part of the sewer there. And then, you're not listening to the people who actually brought you over there. 9:59 will be finishing in about a minute and 10 seconds for the show today. You're tuned in to the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning on WCPT from 8 to 10. Our website is TLSradio.com for the Lightning Strike Radio. I'm your host, Mohammed Fahim. You are listening to us again on WCPT. Feel free to go to our website. And if you would like to send us a message, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, there is a link on our website that you can send us an email. And our team today is Dr. Sheila White, Mike Patino, Read Bible, Congresswoman Marie Newman, and Thomas Gary. Thank you so much for being part of our team today, and thank you for joining the conversation. We'll be back with you folks next week, same place, same time.
Have a good week,
Thank you.
Chicago.